Hey everyone, I'm back from Chicago from GoFest, and over there I did an open qualifier for Rainbow Cup. I did a battle arena as well in the GoFest event, and I was there mainly for the World Championships Season 1 of Silph Arena. In this video, I'm just going to talk about the World Championship matches. Spoiler alert, I didn't do the best in this tournament, so I didn't make it past the initial group stages. So you'll be seeing 3 rounds of battles on my end, and I'll commentate a little bit on why I built the team that I did, and talk about the battles, and also talk about how I would make changes for the team, and also my general thoughts on the tournament. I'll be making videos on my open tournament as well as battle arena and GoFest, so look for those later this week if you're interested. So the team I built has Ivysaur, Hypno, Hitmonchan, Skarmory, Steelix, and Azumarill. And Skarmory and Azumarill are my 2 restricted picks. So to start off with those, Azumarill mostly was because of its versatility in terms of what it beats. And so beating Sableye, beating a lot of the fighting types, and doing pretty well against pseudo fighting types like Vigoroth, and also having Play Rough and Ice Beam on mine, it allows me to counter a lot of the flyers as well. Skarmory I picked because pretty much being the most top tier flying type and being able to wall off the grass types really hard, and also being a pretty decent counter to most of the fighting types as well, although some matchups like a 2 shield situation with Medicham can definitely be a little tricky for Skarmory. And the reason why I didn't bring Probopass or Bastiodon was because they came kind of as a liability in my opinion against any of the counter users or certain water types as well, or even the mud boys like Whiscash. And so that's why I brought Steelix, because Steelix can counter the flyers for the most part. It's a much closer matchup using Steelix than Bastiodon or Probopass, but it definitely gets the job done. And I kind of liked it because this meant that even if it was a closer matchup, it can't get farmed as much by whatever comes next. And also Steelix beating Probopass and Bastiodon is definitely a key factor in picking that over the other 2 as well. I picked Hitmonchan as my counter user, and I picked Hitmonchan over Vigoroth mostly because I expected to see a lot of Vigoroth, and because I can't bring Medicham as well out of my restricted picks, I decided to go with Hitmonchan. Because of its high attack stat, it actually does really well with Power Punch, and I believe it wins a few random matches that you wouldn't expect, such as Azumarill and 2 shields, and Skarmory and 2 shields as well, and it could definitely muscle through quite a few matches with Power Punch. Having Ice Punch also gave it some versatility in countering the grass types or some of the flyers. Hypno was probably one of my most useful picks in this tournament, and the Hypno I'm running is a Legacy Hypno with Psyshock instead of Shadow Ball, which is also another Legacy move. I like Psyshock a lot in this format because the neutral damage from it can do quite a bit against a lot of matchups, and then also it's much faster to charge Psyshock over Shadow Ball. And then lastly, I went with Ivysaur as my grass user. I actually switched back and forth between Ivysaur and Lanoon, and the main reason why I didn't like Lanoon was because you had to rely on its grass moves, which was Grass Knot, to counter any of the water types. So it ended up having to expend a lot of shields in matchup with Azumarill or other water types, and that was mainly because it also didn't have a grass fast attack too. I had some mixed feelings about Ivysaur after the tournament, and I'll share that in the end, but I ultimately went with that because it's a pretty good replica of Venusaur in terms of stat distribution. It also has Sludge Bomb and Vine Whip, and Razor Leaf if you choose to run that. I ran Vine Whip on mine with Power Whip and Sludge Bomb. Power Whip is obviously not as good as Frenzy Plant, but it still does the job pretty well against most water Pokemon, especially if it's a ground water type like the Mud Boys. Before I get into the matches, I just want to explain a little bit about the format that we went through. So all the people that qualified for Worlds were split up into groups of 8, and from there they pretty much did a Swiss style tournament, and only if you won all 3 rounds did you have a chance to move forward into the next stage of the tournament. Going into the first match, I am going against gym leader Brian, and in that match I brought Hypno as a lead with Azumarill and Hitmonchan in the back. And so right here, because I know that Charizard's fairly glassy, I was able to kind of out-muscle it with Hypno. So right here, I'm just going to hit the Azumarill with Psyshock just to lower its health a little bit, and then bring in my own Azumarill for the mirror. And this way, I know that in all likelihood I'll win this, and I'll have the switch priority here. And so we're just going to trade play roughs back and forth here. I believe I just overcharged a little bit right here, and I keep doing so until he uses another play rough. I decided to shield this just in case it takes me down pretty low, and if he follows up with another one, it'll give me a chance to shield again or to choose not to shield, depending on the situation. Because I overcharged, I had another play rough ready, and here I use it against him, and I forego the shield right here just because I think that I could survive the neutral damage back and forth. I actually was wrong here, and so I end up losing the switch priority. Either way, I still had Hypno, and I wasn't sure what he was going to bring next, but I figured I had a pretty good matchup with most of the things, including Vigoroth. And so right here, Vigoroth doesn't have a positive matchup with Hypno, especially with Psyshock, but he does have a health advantage. So right here, I switch in Hitmonchan, which is going to do some super effective damage against the Vigoroth. I know I could survive at least one Body Slam, so I just take it. And then right here, I'm going to go for the Power Punch just to get the attack stat really going. And even against Charizard, even though the fighting type isn't super effective, it's still going to do a decent amount of damage. I choose not to shield that Dragon Claw just because I know that it's a much better matchup for me against Charizard using Hypno. And I actually, that was kind of risky right there where I didn't shield the Dragon Claw, but I had a feeling that he needed to bait out my last shield before he used it Blast Burn. So I was scared that he would get to Blast Burn or another Dragon Claw, so that's why I saved the shield. Luckily, I ended up working out, so I won match 1. And right here, he brings out a Dragonair, and this really threw me off because I wasn't sure that I didn't realize that it was going to beat my Hypno outright like that and do that much damage. I don't know in this which shield situations it would beat Hypno versus lose to Hypno. I just didn't look into Dragonair in my preparation. And so I knew that Azumarill was a hard counter to Dragonair, but him bringing out his own Azumarill right here made it a little bit trickier just because now I'm not going to have the Azumarill if he takes it out. And so I believe my thought process at this point was I really need to keep this Azumarill alive somehow. And so I think in my mind, I was willing to risk 2 shields just to save this Azumarill so that I have a positive matchup in the next situation. I don't choose to shield this right here just because I know I could survive it. And maybe I don't go for the double shield. Okay, so right here, I just go for the switch. And just because I know that I need that Azumarill, even if it's a little bit of health going against that Dragonair. And so my guess is he's going to bring a Dragonair in next. And I'll just trying to get to that Psyshock before he can do so. And he already had a charge move. And so I figured it wasn't worth shielding just to potentially get to the Psyshock. Maybe looking back on it, that would have been a better move. But right here, I'm going to bring out the Azumarill and use Ice Beam and try to take out this Dragonair. And so he still has another shield, and just these Dragon Breaths are just doing so much damage against my Azumarill, even though it resists it. And right here, I'm going to have to shield the Aqua Tail. Not the best use of shields, to be honest. But and I think we ran into a little bit of lag, but we both agreed that we're both experienced it, so we just continue playing through. And right here, it's a good matchup for me, but I need to get to that Power Punch, and he got to the Body Slam before me. I don't know if I hit that Power Punch at the same time he had Body Slam, and it was because of Charge Move Priority that he got the Body Slam off or not. But either way, it was really close, and I had Charge Move Priority in the first match, so it was totally fair that he had it in the second one. And then right here, I have Charge Move Priority in this match. And not a great situation bringing Ivysaur in against Dragonair. And then I was really hoping he wasn't going to bring Lantern just because he hadn't brought Lantern in any of the other 2 matches. But he called this play really well and ends up taking out my Skarmory with his Lantern. And right here, I pretty much need to expend my Ivysaur to take out his Lantern just because it's not going to be good against his Dragonair, and I don't really know what's going to be left in the back end. I probably could have farmed this Lantern a little bit more because I know I'd survive at least a Thunderbolt, and I know that he just used a Thunderbolt on my Skarmory. So a little bit of a misplay right there on my end. And right here, I'm just going to take the Dragon Pulse. Don't know if it's the best idea just because I probably could have shielded and switched it in for whatever his third Pokemon is. But right here, I thought that I could get away with farming this Dragonair. But as you can see, it's actually doing quite a bit of damage, even though that my Azumarill resists the dragon damage. And so I started using Ice Beam, and I was kind of shocked that he shielded because I expected a Azumarill on the back end. And at this point, I'm playing from behind no matter what. But the fact that he shielded it twice made me think that there's something in the back that he is worried about that he can't handle with my Azumarill. I'm thinking about all the potential things that it could be, and it's either a Charizard or it's a Vigoroth. And at this point, I'm pretty positive that I lost just because there's really no way that, no matter what it is, I don't think I can get to enough damage. And it's a Vigoroth, and so right here I knew that I lost even if I could get to this play rough, because I know that it's not going to take out Vigoroth in one hit. And we both experienced a little bit of lag right here, but at the end of the day, I knew that this was a good game, and I was pretty much out of Worlds at this point. So that was the first round, and I was pretty much knocked out. And so at this point, afterward, the next 2 rounds were more so just for fun. So right here, I'm going against Jorge M. Salas, and I have a decent matchup with Ivysaur versus Vigoroth, and so I'm just going to stay in it. But looking back on it, I think that it probably wasn't the best idea, because he probably really wanted to take out this Ivysaur for a reason, likely because he had a water type in the back. And having both Whiscash and Azumarill probably was a sign that I probably should have pulled out of this specific scenario. And right here, I knew that I couldn't switch in time before I died, so I just went for the Sludge Bomb. So right here, I'm about to go in with Hypno over the mirror matchup with Skarmory. And I believe the main reason behind this was because I knew that Hypno would struggle against Azumarill in the back end. And Skarmory would too, but I thought that Skarmory might not struggle as much. And right here, I'm going to just try to go for the Focus Blast. And if I take out Skarmory, I'd definitely be in a good position. But he didn't fall for that, and he smartly decides to shield. And so right here, I go in with Skarmory, and I need to take this Skarmory out as fast as possible, because if it's a Azumarill in the back, I'm just going to get beat pretty badly. And so finally he switches out, and it turns out to be a Whiscash. And I know that it's a positive matchup with a Whiscash, but if he hits me with a Blizzard, then I'm pretty much out. And so right here, he's going to shield that, and I pretty much have to shield this, just because if it's a Blizzard, I'm done. But he ends up baiting me with a Mud Bomb. And so that was a good play by him. And then right here is where the Blizzard comes, and I'm out. So if I didn't shield that Mud Bomb and end up shielding the Blizzard right after, I might have won that. But it still would have been close, because he still had a Skarmory switch. In my second match, I end up going with Skarmory lead with Hitmonchan and Azumarill in the back. And so against Azumarill, it's not the most favorable matchup, but I don't really want to switch in this situation, because I didn't want to give him switch priority. So I figured that if it worst comes to worst, I might expend more than one shield in this matchup. So I'm just going to hit him with Sky Attacks, and he's going to hit me with Ice Beams in all likelihood. And right here, I decide that I should probably shield this, just because at that point I was low enough to get taken out if I didn't. And so he shields as well in this situation, and so pretty much I just need to get a Sky Attack before he gets the Ice Beam. And I go for it right here, and he ends up shielding it, and I believe that's mostly because he wants that charging priority. And I wasn't really confident that I could survive the bubbles from him, or that he wouldn't get to Ice Beam before me in the next time around, so I didn't want to spend my second shield right there. Right here, I'm pretty much trying to farm energy on this Azumarill, and I know that Play Rough's going to do a decent amount of damage to me, so I'm just going to farm a little bit more until he's low enough on health, and then I'm just going to go with the Ice Beam just to be safe, because I didn't want to get hit by 2 Play Roughs in this situation. And right here, he brings out Vigoroth, and so I know that he probably doesn't have a grass Pokemon to counter with, and I go with Hitmonchan just because it's going to do quite a bit of damage to the Vigoroth, and I'm not going to shield this Body Slam because, or it was actually Bulldoze. Either way, I knew that it was going to be able to survive it, and so he brings out his own Skarmory, and right here, I know that I'm in a tight spot, but I should be okay because I had a little bit of energy built up so I could get off the Ice Beam. I also have a shield, and so I knew that this was going to be close, but I was pretty sure that I could beat him in this situation, and I had Ice Beam ready as well, so pretty much as long as he doesn't get to another Sky Attack, I have the match. Very close second match, but was able to squeeze out that win right there. So in this third matchup, I end up going with the same lineup of Skarmory, Hitmonchan, and Azumarill. And right here, he ends up opening with Bronzong, and I couldn't remember off the top of my head which one wins what specific shield scenarios. But pretty much my strategy here was to use Sky Attack and then wait for him to hit me with a charge move before I decided to switch in Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan is not the greatest counter to Bronzong just because the confusion damage does quite a bit of damage to Hitmonchan, but I know that the counters and power punches will do quite a bit of neutral damage to the Bronzong because of the steel typing. What you didn't see there is actually the Flash Cannon hitting my Skarmory, and it did quite a bit of damage. It just, the animation didn't show because I was mid-switch with the Hitmonchan at the time. He decides to actually shield that Power Punch. My guess is he knew that the racked up Power Punch damage was actually going to do more to Skarmory than most people would probably anticipate. And so right here you can see my Skarmory is actually fairly low at this point, and I pretty much am trying to do whatever I can to get a slight advantage here, just because it's not a favorable matchup for me. Having a little bit less health than his Skarmory, and we're both at even shields at this point. And so it wasn't enough to take him out, and right here I know that I'm pretty much being taken out by the Sky Attack. And then I have a Azumarill in the back, and I was really just hoping that he didn't have his Ivysaur in the back, and he ends up having a Azumarill as well. So we're in a Azumarill mirror, and I kind of make some mistakes right here. So we're both at 1 shield each, and so I'm thinking that if I could bait out a shield somehow, I'll have a huge advantage, right? Because I wasn't sure if I was going to win or not. I had a little bit more energy, but I had less life too. He doesn't end up falling for the bait, and so I shielded his Play Rough, hoping that he would think that I was going to use Play Rough on my end. But he doesn't end up falling for it, which was a good play by Jorge right there. And then he just continually hits me with Play Roughs, and at this point, I know it's not looking good for me, and I pretty much have lost. So I go for Ice Beam because I have to bait out this last shield no matter what, and so I do bait it out. But at this point, he's going to get to a Play Rough, and I'm not going to be able to get to another Play Rough before he takes me out with the bubbles. So I end up losing round 2 as well of this tournament. So going into my last round with the piece of bread, and bad matchup right off the bat with Ivysaur against Charizard, and so I have to go in with Hitmonchan. Also not a great counter. So my third Pokemon is Azumarill, and it would have been a good counter for Charizard, but had he brought Lantern or Venusaur in the back, then I pretty much would have been done because the Charizard would sweep through the rest of my team after that Azumarill's out. So right here, I know that because these Power Punches can do quite a bit of damage to Charizard, I just keep continually hit him with Power Punches and counters. And so right here I have Switch Advantage, which is nice, and I'm able to also get off a Power Punch. And I do that on the Lantern, and which does quite a bit of damage. He does still have a shield though, and then so I go straight to Azumarill against a Skarmory. At this point, I'm pretty sure I lost because his Skarmory has an extra shield, and my Azumarill doesn't. And so even if I could hit him with all the Ice Beams, he's going to be able to shield at least one of them, and then his Skarmory could pretty much take out my Ivysaur. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing I could do at this point, and so he played this one really well, in my opinion, and I couldn't even get off that last Ice Beam too. And so right here, anyone that's played PvP in Great League knows that this is a bad matchup for Ivysaur to be in, or really any grass type. So feeling pretty nervous at this point because I'm expecting that I probably will lose all 3 rounds. So I ended up going with Hypno, Azumarill, and Hitmonchan in this. And I go back to Hypno just because I was like, for the most part, I did pretty well with Hypno, except for that one situation with Dragonair. And so I'd end up going with Psyshock, and I know it does a decent amount of neutral damage, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to take out his Lantern, but I was able to get it to another Psyshock beforehand, which is why, again, like I mentioned earlier, Psyshock on Hypno is actually pretty useful in a lot of neutral matchups. Right here, there's no way I could get to a Focus Blast, but I didn't want to switch and lose the switch priority here, so I ended up going with Azumarill as my counter to Skarmory, and he switches to Venusaur, and I wasn't really sure what it was going to be, but I knew that was going to be a counter to my Azumarill, so I just instantly switched to Hitmonchan right here. So I'm going to hit him with Power Punch because I expect that he might think it's Ice Punch and shielded, but he doesn't. So that was a good call by him. And then at this point, I'm just going to go straight for the Power Punches because Venusaur's low enough that the counters and Power Punch can actually do enough damage to take it out. And even if he shields it, my counters at least get boosted. So he's going to shield that, of course, because he thinks that it's, regardless of what it is, it was going to take him out. And then right here, I'm going to go with the Power Punch on the Skarmory, and so if he chooses not to shield it, it would have done a decent amount of damage, but he does end up shielding it, and so I'm going to go back in with my Azumarill. I have a health advantage, and I can get an Ice Beam off right after the Sky attack, and so I felt fairly comfortable here. But, of course, this matchup is fairly still close, and I was able to take out that Skarmory with the Ice Beam. So, going into match number 3 in round 3, so the very last match of Worlds for me, I ended up going with Skarmory, Hitmonchan, and Hypno. And so we go for Skarmory Mirror. I'm not a huge fan of mirrors or just head-to-heads with similar typings. So I just know that it's going to really come down to how who has CMP at a certain point, and then also if he decides to use Flash Cannon or not. And so I'm actually down a little bit lower in health, and I don't know if that's because I have a bad IV spread on my Skarmory, because it definitely isn't a good PvP IV spread. But he ends up shielding this Skarmory, and I was able to get off at least to another Sky attack. And so it really depends on if he wanted to burn a second shield or not. He doesn't, but he still survives, so he has switch priority here. Not the best scenario, but I end up just going with Hitmonchan because, like I said, Hitmonchan does a decent amount of damage in neutral matchups, so because Skarmory is also Steel type, it's going to do a decent amount of damage with just the counters, and then this way I could rack up some damage with the Power Punches, and he brings out Whiscash, which is really good news for me because Hitmonchan does beat Whiscash in a one-on-one situation, especially with already a Power Punch built up. And right here, I'm just going to do whatever I can to protect this Hitmonchan, because once Hitmonchan starts snowballing and adding up Power Punches, it just ends up doing a ton of damage. It's kind of like Medicham, except for the fact that because it has a higher attack stat, it ends up hitting even harder. It's a lot glassier though, but it still does decent amount of damage. Right here, I end up going with Power Punch. I know I could have gone with Ice Punch, but I knew that no matter if it wasn't a Venusaur, then it would have been good to use that. So let's say if it was, I don't know, like a Lantern or something. But I knew that if it was a Venusaur, I can switch right into a Hypno right after, so you can't farm my Hitmonchan, and I was able to just take it out with Confusion hits. And so that ended up working well for me. So as you can see, not one of my best performances in tournaments, going 1-2 and pretty much getting eliminated after the first round, facing a lot of these strong competitors there. So to discuss my team and what changes I would make for anyone that has Worlds coming up in either Dortmund or Santiago, I think that my choice in Ivysaur wasn't the best, in the sense that I would have probably preferred to use a Razor Leafer. Razor Leafers usually don't need to expend shields. Essentially what I realized is even if I brought Ivysaur as a counter to Azumarill, which a lot of people had, I probably would have had to expend at least a shield, potentially even 2 if the Azumarill had energy built in going into it. Something else I would consider swapping out Hitmonchan for Vigoroth. The biggest drawback I see in using Hitmonchan over Vigoroth is you have a worse matchup with Azumarill. If you saw in my third match, in round 1, I end up losing my Azumarill to Vigoroth matchup because the Bison was just going to be able to do enough against my Azumarill that was already below half health. And the play rough was not enough to take out a Vigoroth. So that was a big important thing too, because if a Hitmonchan got hit with that play rough, it would have been taken out completely. For Steelix, I end up not even using once, as you can see from my matches. And the main reason behind that was because I mostly brought Steelix in for matchups against Probopass and Bastiodon, and I didn't run it into either of them. I don't know if it's still a good pick or not, because Steelix is kind of a generalist pick, and it doesn't really win a lot of matchups outright. A lot of people at Worlds actually use Lantern as their anti-flyer pick. Hopefully this is informative for anyone going into Worlds. Unfortunately, I can only show 3 rounds just because I didn't make it any further than that. Overall, I thought the tournament was a really great experience. Obviously, I wish I could have done a little better in the group stage, and I think most of the competitors probably felt that way too, just because these are the people that won their regionals and probably do fairly well in most of their cups. And so it was a very humbling experience for me to take those losses and to go against such competitive and strong players. And I'm sure it was a humbling experience for a lot of the other competitors as well. I think at the end of the day, it really shows how much PvP has come since the early stages of Silpharina hosting the Boulder Cup or even the beta tournaments in December or early January too. I want to give a huge shout out to the Silph Arena staff, drums, and all the volunteers for really putting this together. I know there were a lot of technical difficulties and bumps in the road throughout the streaming process for the top 8 players, but at the end of the day, they're volunteering a lot of their free time to do this, and it is also their first championships tournament. It was also really great to meet a lot of people that watch my videos. I honestly didn't expect to run into so many people because I just thought most people that watch my videos were from Atlanta or some of my random friends that subscribe to my channel. Yeah, and it was just honestly a little bit unexpected just because I'm such a small-time YouTuber compared to a lot of the other content creators. I thank you all for the kind words and for those that said that they really enjoy my videos, and hopefully I could continue to meet those expectations in the future too. If you have any questions about my thoughts on Worlds that I didn't cover already or my teams, feel free to ask those questions in the comments below. Like I said earlier, I will be making a video on the Open Rainbow Cup, and I have my own Rainbow Cup later this week as well too. So look forward to that. I'll see you all next time.